so many animals that have been rehabbed. How many animals you got currently?
Minks, baby owls, baby red fox, baby gray fox, baby coons, baby possums, baby rabbits, baby squirrels.
So people know the gravity of the cost of feeding an eagle. Tell them how much they eat every day, so they'll know how expensive it is.
So let's see. That eagle eats about $8 a day worth of chicken.
Yeah.
If, for y'all that have ever been to my house, you know I have my hawk in with my eagle. My hawk is my falconry hawk, and he's set in there with many eagles. And so my hawk now that I use for falconry, he thinks he's an eagle. He even runs eagles off of. Have any of y'all seen him do that? I know a couple of you have, and you know so. When I go falconry hunting with him, if it's got fur or feathers, he will jump on it. So somebody asked me, I'm going to tell you a story. What was the biggest thing I ever caught one time? And it was a 200-pound Englishman at a falconry meet in a fur coat. Now, we all had a string of Harris hawks out. You know, when you're flying Harris hawks, there's 3 or 4 of them each falconer has at the same time. And then every falconer can get out and chase the rabbit, and they won't kill each other. Only Harris hawks do that. And for some reason, this guy in a Bentley with the chauffeur got out a quarter of a mile away to see what we were all doing. It looked interested, I'm sure, from a distance, as 50 men running around with 100 birds yelling ho, 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 chasing rabbits with hawks that are 180 miles an hour. And my hawk was always a really good hawk, and she led the pack straight to that guy. And he was literally wearing a fur inside lined rabbit fur jacket. And so my hawk knocked him down, and the other 30 just held him down. Took us all a minute to get there. And so luckily, as a falconer, I can't be sued for the act of my bird. And yeah, you know, one time I was flying my hawk, and I let my hawk jump out the car window at 60 and catch crows. And there was a game warden behind me, and he pulled me over and he says, "Did a hawk just jump out that window and catch a crow?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Can I watch?" I said, "Get in." He came back 3 days in a row early. We spent all day. He drove, and we caught a lot of them. He said, "This is probably in the gray area, but I'm going to let you slide." So the same game warden, several years later, I'm sitting on the river under the bridge. And I didn't know it's against the law. Did y'all to go sit under a bridge? Can't sit under a bridge. And sitting under the bridge, and I got a couple of otters swimming in the river. And game warden comes walking up. And I'm thinking, this is a perfect opportunity. Y'all know how I am. I can be a little bit of a, you know. And so he said, "What you doing?" I said, "Fishing." He said, "Where's your fishing pole?" "It'll be here in a minute." So he's kind of looking at me funny, and he starts talking. About that time, the otters, y'all, some of y'all I know have seen that. My otters bring me fishing, lay them at my feet. Big ones. I had a 10-pound bass one day. Otter brought at a public fishing derby event. Was any of y'all present for that? I think some of you are. And otter comes dragging up a biggest fish I ever seen, dropped it at my feet, and the guy that said I could swim him in his pond said, "Don't let him swim here no more." So the otter ran up to my feet and dropped like a 6-pound bass. And he looked at me again. He said, "You just walk in that gray area." I said, "I've got a fishing license and a hunting license. And we're hunting fish." He says, "Does the otter have a fishing license?" And he let me go. He retired a few years back. But he called me one day and he said, hilarious. "Tommy," he said, "I've got a bear cub up a tree." He said, "Well, it's not really a cub. It's about 120 pounds." He said, "But it's in the middle of town and it's too high up to dart it, because if I dart it, it'll fall out and it'll hurt itself and people will blame me for it. Can you do anything?" And I went and I pulled up to the tree and I started heading up the tree, and he grabbed my foot, pulled me back down. He said, "What is your intention?" I said, "I'm going to climb up that tree." I had a toe sack. I said, "I'm going to stuff that bear by the scruff of his neck in this toe sack, and I'm going to bring him back down." He said, "You are not." And I said, You just back up, buddy. What do you think happened, Daniel? I climbed up that tree and I stuck that bear in that toast. I had to bring him back down and handed it to him. He said, "You are a crazy redneck." And one day we were coming off of the mountain. Lavonda, where are you at?
She's hiding.
She is hiding. And this same game warden, we had a lot of experience together. He's got his 12 gauge out because they used to have trash cans all going on your way up to the lodge, and they would throw trash in, which just led bears up there, and then the bears threw the trash all over. It took me 10 years. I finally got to quit putting those trash cans up there, and it saved 16 bears a year is what they killed coming to those trash cans. So that's one of the best things they ever did. It's a scenic byway. Why have trash cans? Carry your trash with you when you leave. And y'all remember that when Queen Wilhelmina had trash cans up there? Got them suckers took off, and it's been a lot cleaner ever since. You remember all the bears that used to come up there? And so he's fixing to shoot this bear, which is a beautiful bear, with rubber bullets from here to you. And I was like, no, that'll hurt him. No, it won't hurt him. I said, I've seen those rubber bullets, on YouTube. I know that they'll hurt him. I said, just a second. And I ran over and I picked a switch. He said, what are you going to do? I said, watch. And I run and I switched that bear off of the mountain. You remember? You see me do things like that. And was you there the day I roped the bear? Bear with the...
Was there when you were in the cage with that new mountain lion, though?
Yeah.
He boxed his head in.
Yeah.
An old mountain lion, throw lefts and rights, like old George Foreman.
Yeah, a mountain lion punches 10 times the blow of Mike Tyson. I could take a mountain lion punch better than anybody, couldn't I? I remember that mountain lion showed up one day, and it's on YouTube with 4 million views, and nobody knows the story, so here it is. This mountain lion had just left the vet's office, and a lot of times when Game and Fish shows up with things, they'll put them in birds and stuff in a wire cage. And Bart, Lynn, y'all are good at big cats. What happens if you put a wild cat in a wire cage?
It's not happy.
Right. It hurts their teeth and their claws. And so he showed up bleeding, and the vet had let him wake up and had a ace bandage wrapped around his leg. You can see it in this video, and there's an IV needle in that thing's arm, and he's fully awake.
Oh, man.
And I just got him for biting somebody's finger off. And so I put on I rode a Harley at the time because I just needed the leathers, and everybody laughed at me if I didn't have a Harley. But that's how I saved myself from mountain lion attacks and bear attacks. Never. I put on my Harley leathers, and I went in that pen, and I caught her with a 4-foot dog catch pole, because at that time they had banned the stuff that you knock out mountain lions with. Well, I had an active zoo with bears and mountain lions. It became against the law because they were using it for a date rape drug, ketamine. And I was like, well, what about all of us that have mountain lions and bears that we have to work on? They never answered that question.
You can't get close enough to kiss him without some ketamine.
Right, and so the comments all say, why didn't this guy, use? Well, I wish I'd had him, because I'm very experienced, trained in that. Back in the 80s, I darted and knocked out more lions and tigers and bears than y'all can. That's what I did for a living, because Texas kicked every tiger out of Texas in the 80s, and I moved half of them to other states to save as many as I could. And so I got really good at darting and knocking it out, and then just one day, you couldn't use Ketased and Rompum anymore to knock things out. So I had to do that with a 4-foot catch pole, like a tough dog catcher. And people still complain about YouTube to this day. Well, who else would have got in there with a leather jacket on only and wrestled this mountain lion down to take a pair of scissors and cut that bandage off of her arm so I could get that 3-inch needle out of her vein, because in 4 days that needle will rot and rust and kill you. And so it had to be done. And so yeah, that's what happened on that video. If somebody posts this to YouTube, maybe everybody on YouTube that gives me a hard time will get over that, because it says on that video, I bet this guy, me, took that cat's claws or teeth or whatever it was out, just so that he could get in there with it. No, that's not what happened at all. And so, in fact, I like cats and bears. I never did anything like cats and bears. If they had teeth and claws, that's better, because they're scarier that way, and scary is what I like. So. All right, let's see.